Welcome, everyone, to Sports Innovation Lab's Ask Me Anything series. We're thrilled to have Cordero Barkley joining us as our guest. I will get into his introduction in just a moment, but just want to run through a few quick reminders. My name is Shanna McCardle. I'm the event director here at Sports Innovation Lab. If you have not been able to see all of our past AMAs, we have all past recordings posted on our website and on our YouTube channel, so I'll make sure to share that link with you. Quick reminder, please join our Slack community if you haven't already done so. It's really easy to join, and it's just a great place to meet people and learn about upcoming events, job openings. It's a great place, so I'll make sure you have that link to join. This is an Ask Me Anything, so we want to hear from you. Please type your questions in the question window on the right side of your screen. Feel free to ask your question at any point throughout the hour, and Josh will ask when it is appropriate. Now, on our introductions, you all know Josh Walker as the president and co-founder of Sports Innovation Lab. He will be leading our conversation today. Now, on to our special guest, Cordero Barkley is the director of finance and investments for TitletownTech. In addition to this role, Cordero is also responsible for TitletownTech's sports, media, and entertainment vertical. Formerly in his role with Associated Bank Wealth Management, Cordero worked with high net worth individuals and professional athletes. In his spare time, Barkley is also the ESPN3 and Spectrum Sports TV color analyst for the University of Wisconsin Green Bay men and women's basketball teams. And Cordero, maybe this is a good time to bring out your Green Bay hat. With that, I will pass it over to Josh, but welcome to Cordero. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I was making fun of you before for bringing the hat, not the cheese wedge, but thank you, Shanna. It's great to see you, Cordero. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, that's your first mistake. So we'll try to be efficient with your time, but also let a lot of folks that are listening understand a little bit better what Titletown is all about. So why don't you start us off with that? What are you doing? What's this whole thing about? Like, when did it start? What is its goal? Like, just give everybody a little bit of background on what's happening in Green Bay.
Yeah, sometimes we're still trying to figure it out. I feel like
that's fair. Yeah.
I think you got to go back. 5-6 years ago, the Packers were really looking at 20 years from now, how do you sustain an NFL franchise in the smallest professional sports market, right? So Green Bay's 85,000 people, metropolitan area of about 450,000 people. But the city of Green Bay is actually a regular sized town, right? And literally Lambeau's in the middle of a neighborhood. And so it's really, really unique, connective community. But looking out, looking at the trends in the state and looking at the trends across the country, how can you sustain a franchise here? And so the Packers really challenged the community. Ed Policy, who was the COO of the Packers, he put out a white paper just kind of, creating dialogue around what can the Packers do to leverage the power of their brand to help impact the community. And at the same time, the Packers were purchasing properties around Lambeau and with the goal to build this Titletown district where they would be able to put, retail, amenities such as 4- and 5-star hotels.
It's a huge trend in the industry to do those mixed retail environments around stadiums.
Yep. So we're building that out. So through that, it started off as doing a venture fund inside of Lambeau, and then it pivoted into, venture fund with its own space, its own designated space, and in a studio where, thought leadership can happen, where, companies can come and build and grow, and where we'd have a place, a home for this type of innovation to happen within our community. And so Green Bay historically has always been an innovative area. If you look back, Green Bay was founded on innovation through the paper mills, and you come up and through, the 70s and 80s, and it became a sports town, right? The Packers, they started winning the championships. And so now it's kind of coming back to the combination of both, where it's, sports and technology. And we're blessed to be a part of that. And so yes, we have a $25 million fund. The Packers and Microsoft actually came together, and Brad Smith, who was the president of Microsoft, had the opportunity to come. He's from Appleton, which is 30 minutes south of Green Bay, but had the chance to come and tour Lambeau, and Mark Murphy invited him to Lambeau, and he says it's the most expensive tour he's ever been on. So he was laying out how this would need a tech partner, and how a partnership with the Packers and Microsoft could be unique in the space and could really drive this innovation that the Packers were envisioning. And
I can guarantee you it wasn't the most expensive tour he's ever been on. But I understand what you're saying. That is one of the unique parts about this. And I want to touch on a couple of things because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what TitletownTech is and what you guys are building. Because there was a real push about 5-10 years ago for all the teams in the different pro leagues to start accelerator programs, right? They wanted to look innovative. So they went out and they got a bunch of startups together and they said, we're going to do startup showcases. We're going to be a lot of, like the different sort of tech stars and other sort of accelerator programs that are out there. And they're like, why shouldn't we be a hub of innovation? Yeah. Now, to be fair, you have some of that. You have some of that flavor to what you're doing, but there's a different mindset that you guys have. When you talk about this and when you and I get into this, it's like there's something about reinvesting into the region. And it's about the sustainability of the region. It's not just about sports and doing the next great fan engagement app. You're really trying to build a community that can sustain the geographic area around Lambeau.
Absolutely, yeah, and we didn't pay you to say that, so I appreciate you, Josh, for dropping that knowledge. But no, yeah, it's definitely it's bigger than just an accelerator. It is really focused in on Wisconsin, Northeast Wisconsin. And then again, like you said, the direct communities within this, the Lambeau radius. But at the same time, it's the connectivity to the rest of the world and bringing those resources here. And also, we're not exclusive to investing in Wisconsin or building in Wisconsin, but we do tilt and we do preference Wisconsin.
But it's an enviable position to be in, to have Microsoft be a partner in this and to have skin in the game and to be thinking about future funds with you guys. How did it come about? Was he a fan? Was it just the right connection? Is it part of their investment thesis to invest back into rural America? Like, where was the connection here?
A little bit of all of that, right? And so Microsoft is very adamant about connectivity in rural America and bringing connectivity to areas that normally you wouldn't expect to find a venture capital fund in, right? With our connectivity, and then there is obviously the connections, right? When you could put a brand like the Packers together with Microsoft, there's weight that holds there. And I also think it's the power of our managing director Craig Dickman, he's built ventures himself. He's has his own tremendous background, but his ability to connect the dots and help understand the bigger vision of how all of this can be connected within the entrepreneurial space, not only in Green Bay, but in Wisconsin and across the country. I just think it's a lot of combinations of, it was 5 or 6 years of dialogue and then finally the execution of it, right? So
this stuff doesn't happen overnight, right?
No.
Yeah. But one of the things you guys have done, which is incredibly fascinating to me, and I mean that genuinely, is you've convinced people to come freeze their asses off. Like, you brought people, and I'm specifically talking about the entrepreneurs you bring from places like LA or the West Coast. It's like, what's the draw? What are they trying to tap into? Why do they come? How do you get them to move?
It's a great question. When we first started this, we thought we would have, one company in maybe the first 3 years that would sign up to, hey, we don't require anybody you have to pick up and leave and come and build at TitletownTech. What we do is we lay out, here's what the option would look like if we would just invest through our fund. And then here's what it will look like if you were here. And we leave people the option like, hey, if you can make this happen here too, here's all the resources we can surround you with daily. And we've had a number of companies choose to do that. And so, you talk about Kim Direct, who picked up and left Venice Beach about a week after a 7. I think they came and we had a 7-inch snowstorm. And, we have a team of 7 now that's inside of our 4 walls at TitletownTech. We've also had a team from Denver that's going to pick up and move.
Denver, you don't get credit for. Venice Beach, you get credit for. Like, if you pick me up off of Venice Beach and you drop me in Green Bay, kudos to you, my friend. So tell me a little bit about the studio model, because it's different than the accelerators. It's got a different feel to it because you're applying resources in a different way than accelerators traditionally do. And just for those of you who don't know what an accelerator is, they do things in cohorts, 3-6 months. They get a bunch of startups together, and then they take about 10-15% equity, and they help that startup move to a different stage of their funding path. You guys have taken a different approach. Talk about the studio model and how it differs than sort of that cohort accelerator model.
Yeah, so I think the biggest differential is that we look at each deal within the studio and within the fund. It's kind of a one-of-one. Like we we mold it, we built a relationship. We really take a co-founder approach within the studio. And we're really trying to take, those ideas or those ventures and then turn them into real viable projects. And so it's different in the sense that, when we sit down with the founder, we're really sitting next to them and not, telling them what they need to do, but we're trying to grow with them and help them grow. And we surround them with resources, whether it's, our LP base consists of some of the top corporations in the state of Wisconsin. Not only is it the Packers and Microsoft, but we have a number of manufacturers and folks from different companies from different types of industries within our fund. And then also have the New York Mets and the Boston Bruins ownership group who was invested in the fund. And so it's really connecting the dots when we sit down with a company and say, what are you trying to build? All right, what resources can we get you in front of faster, or what can we bring in to help you framework out, the tech stack, and then really just pinning them down the proper path. And that may be bringing in Aaron Kennedy, who is our entrepreneur in residence, who was the founder of Noodles and Company, which is a great restaurant chain, and using his marketing expertise to help them put together a plan and a brand that's consistent and to grow on and build on. And so it's really, again, taking a co-founder role and then using all of our experience, whether it's finance or legal or et cetera, to help accelerate, not to use the term, but to really expedite their opportunity for growth and to actually have a true venture, a true business that can grow.
Yeah, you used the term connected capital with me in the past, and it's about the connection to something other than just the Packers. And I think that that's one of the things that, again, the rest of the industry has sort of biased people to think, which is like, oh, this is the, group where you go and you can try your app out on Lambo and you can, work with the team. And maybe that's the case for Slate and Boost, two of your portfolio companies that have a very sports focus. But, you mentioned ChemDirect. You mentioned there's two other portfolios that are in health and connected health. So it's not just about the sports connection here. You guys are actually a diversified fund looking for opportunities that might not have anything to do with sports.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I think obviously when you build out a fund and, the Packers and Microsoft are on it, you draw, and then the Mets and Bruins are announced, you draw a specific type of thought process. And so we were big on getting out and sharing that. No, we don't only invest in sports. We do love sports. I know I do. But we also invest, we have agriculture, water, and environment is one vertical. So we have 5 verticals. That's one of them. We also have digital health. We have manufacturing. If you make anything, you have to move anything. So we have logistics as a vertical. And then we also, as you know, have sports, media, and entertainment.
We were just talking about the fact that you guys are diversified, that you're outside of sports. You're touching on the ag piece of this as well. And so the connected capital message from Titletown is that there is resources within the region, skill sets within the region that really do differentiate maybe the type of business or the type of expertise and mentorship you would get if you built your business in that area. Yeah. And I'm assuming that somehow, did you build an advisor network? How did you really cultivate that piece of the story to convince people to kind of participate?
So no, I was sharing, we really looked at, you look at Wisconsin, you look at the Midwest, and then you look at the world. You wanted to find a combination of what would add value here in Wisconsin and within our state, but also, things that would equate any part of the country. And so we also didn't want to just only be receiving deal flow on sports tech, right? And so we have 5 verticals. So agriculture, water, and environment is one. We have, advanced manufacturing, which again, you make anything, you have to move it. So we have logistics. We also have digital health, and then obviously the sports, media, and entertainment vertical. So we have those 5 verticals, and then unofficially a 6th vertical, which is just businesses and founders that have businesses that we like, right? So we'll look at just about anything.
I love how investors always leave that optionality, right? Smart people, yeah, cool. But that does bring me to my next question, which is so there's a regional focus, a vertical focus. Is there a thesis? Is there something that you guys say attracts you beyond the team? And I gave you a little bit of flack for this when we did our prep call, because every investor's like, it's about the team.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's put it aside. It's always about the team. But right. Is there a thesis on the industries you want to be involved in, and why? Has COVID in any way changed the way you guys think about investing and the opportunities that you want to see from a deal flow perspective?
Oh yeah, so we've been big on you know, you got to be doing something that's real and tangible that's going to really have an impact. And as much as cliche as that sounds, like that's kind of the baseline within all of those industries. Are you changing the behavior or the way things happen in that industry? Like we want something that, and I know everybody says they want disruptive technology, but that's a real thing. Like if we see 10 of the same things, you're probably not enough into, whether it's ag or digital health and so we were very forward facing on what does this look like, 5-10 years from now? We took the same approach that the Packers took, what's the technology going to look like? What's going to be vital going forward? And so we made the early bets on telehealth prior to COVID. So you look at Strive Orthopedics and Strive MedTech, who's crushing it right now due to their ability to allow pre and post-op at home healthcare. Like you can literally do all of your pre-work or your rehab from home on an app that's community-based that connects you with the healthcare system, and the providers get billable codes off of those treatments. So and then the tech deck from that, where they're pulling the information from the rehab to enhance the probability of a successful surgery and successful recovery is massive, right? So we've looked at, we were looking at how things were going to be, 5 years, 10 years from now, when we were building out our thesis and just really trying to take a deeper dive into, whether it's looking at, how things are delivered and making a bet in a domestic drone play, which is one of our companies, or, looking at Boost, who was really, like, to me, Boost, and that's one of our portfolio companies as well, who's an AI and computer vision company that's really in sports, but has the ability to pivot into a number of other industries based on how they built their tech deck out.
Yeah, so, for those of you who don't know what Boost is doing, it's one of those machine learning AI kind of companies that takes Moneyball and puts it on steroids, because basically it's identifying events on a live video feed. I'm assuming that's what they're analyzing, and then they're overlaying the stats. So I don't know if they can do that in real time, but the demos that they've shown certainly say that they can do it with a degree of accuracy that allows you to see patterns across your gameplay. And I'm sure if you can see patterns across gameplay, you can see patterns across any kind of video. So that video analysis and that AI is something we see a lot at the Sports Innovation Lab. But again, sports provides that use case. It provides that pressure cooker for, like, if you can do this during a live sports game, holy cow, you probably do it for my medical imagery, or you could probably do it for, policing or things like that. So we have at the Sports Innovation Lab, since we started, always said, what are the ideas that are going to come out of sports that are going to have legs in other adjacent industries? And I'm going to ask you, because you're an investor and you kind of have to think that way, where do you see some of the innovation within sports, within some of the deal flow that you've seen, that you're like bullish and you're like, man, this is so much bigger than sports? We just talked about Boost, so there's a really good example. Is Strive one of those companies that has both an application outside of sports, but also with the NFL alumni? Is that the one that's working with that group, or is it another?
No, that's the one. They have they're the official provider for the NFL Alumni Association.
Okay, so that's you're seeing it come the other way versus outside of sports. What do you think is happening in sports right now? When you talk to Green Bay, or when you talk to Microsoft, who has a very large partnership with the NFL in general, what are they working on that you're like, man, this is going to crush it when it finally makes its way outside of the walls?
Well, Microsoft also just got the NBA deal as well. But so in my personal opinion, I think everyone's trying to figure out how to maximize AI within the space. Whoever can figure that out, just how do you maximize the potential of AI within the sports tech space? To me, that's what it seems like when I talk with anyone. That's what interests, them. That's where the next true breakthrough will happen, where it'll go from changing sports to where it's literally going to transform and transcend how sports are consumed, and how players how their recovery is treatment, how fans engage and is given data based on their own personal interest. It almost is like, to me, it's like whoever can unlock you go in the app and you get the freemium model and then you pay for the upgrade. Like when premium becomes the norm, like whoever can figure that out is going to have, and that's what I feel like, the companies that we have shown interest in, and that, when we talk with other VCs that are strictly focused on sports, that's what they're trying to figure out is who gets there first.
The premium becomes the norm. I love that because that's kind of what I see happening with Intel right now. And I choose them because they've been working on TrueView and this spin camera forever, where they've been showing, the guy hanging from the rim from all different angles. That's been their technology, and they've been in the market with it now for probably about 5 years. They bought Voke a few years ago, and then they spun up this thing called TrueView. And now you see the commercials. And the commercials are trying to, and I see it specifically for the NFL now because I watch a lot of basketball with my son. They're like the spinny cam, and they're trying to democratize it, make it seem very accessible, but it's very complicated to the consumer, right? That there's this premium way to view content. But pretty soon that could be pretty normal. And it could be pretty normal to have AI that allows me to dive into this data, which is on a media screen, in a new way. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think that there's something that's like, there's a tipping point that we're just getting closer and closer to, because for a consumer to be like, AI, I mean, how many Watson commercials do you need to see before you understand that like big data plays a role in Wimbledon? You know, it's like, yeah, it's fascinating. There's another, I mean, Gina asked a really good question here, so I want to touch on it. I already asked you how your investment thesis would change based on COVID, but is it anything related to the viewing experience? And I asked specifically because Microsoft is taking such an active role in the NBA right now with the fan boards and a lot of the co-watching and social viewing stuff that's coming. Are you seeing more of that? Obviously there's more of it, but are you seeing more of that in the last few months as a potential investment? Or do you think the big dogs like Microsoft and others are going to own that and you should stay out of it because Netflix is going to own it, Amazon's going to own it, Microsoft's going to own it? What's your thesis on that? Is there an opportunity for an investor to make money in that space?
I think so. I think there's twofold. I do think you have the players who have, you look at a Microsoft or IBM, whoever you want to throw into the big dogs, right? I do think they absorb a chunk of that space because they just have the resources to do it faster, better, and adapt as things continue to change. I do also think there's going to be enhancements to that experience, and I think that comes from the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're looking for is, okay, so we know that there's going to be Microsoft Teams video, fan cams. Mm-hmm. How do we what technology makes that experience more game-like? Because at the end of the day, like looking out, should I say, and looking forward, like even if we get a vaccine, things get back to normal. There's a psychological piece of it of when will people feel comfortable to go sit in an 80,000 seat arena or a football stadium or a 17,000 seat basketball arena or go to a 40,000 seat baseball game. And with the just looking at the economy, so my banking days kicked back in. Like when will people have discretionary income to partake in spending $10, $12 on a hot dog, right? And bringing the family out for a ball game. So there's all that. So I think COVID will expedite the marketplace to create more fan at-home solutions, right? I think that comes from VC. I think that comes from the marketplace, not from the big companies, right? I think the companies absorb them, but that comes from our space.
So Erica wants to take us in a little bit of a different direction. So let's talk a little bit about what tech companies you see leading the way in youth sports. Green Bay notoriously really active in the community-owned team, really just baked into the fiber of everything that happens around there. I'm sure even just regionally, there's tons of work that Microsoft's doing with you guys, and maybe even some of your startups are focused on activating in that area. But let's think about that area and then maybe even a little bit broader. Like, what's your thesis on youth sports and where do you see tech having a role? Is that an area you're investing in?
We actively look for youth sports ideas. So one, looking at Boost, Boost actually started off in the youth sports space. And,
for their social media product?
No, that's late. No, for the Boost was for the.
I'm sorry, for the analytics, for the AI.
Yep. Yeah. So Mustafa Abdul Hamid, who's the founder, was running camps and collecting this data on players, but then the players had nowhere to go with the data, because if I want to take this to a college coach, they didn't know what Boost was, where are you pulling this data? And so that's when he flipped and said, I need to approach the college space and then work back down. So as you look at the youth sports space, the things that the professional athletes have access to, as people figure out ways, whether it's, getting the camera systems or the ability to pull data, look at the ability to organize and bring athletes together and gather data in vast. So I think there's a huge data play. When we see companies that are collecting massive amounts of data from specific, whether it's U11, U12, U13, and they're keeping that data over the course of years.
The aggregators. You're looking for the aggregators, because there was a frothy market about 2 years ago for the registration platform. So I'm thinking of Blue Star, but there was Blue Sombrero and Team Snap and all these league apps. I'm jogging my brain, but there was everybody was trying to roll those up because they had all the kids' profiles in different registration systems.
Exactly.
I like where you're headed though, but there's this next wave of aggregation, which is anybody who can bring together sort of maybe performance data or something of that nature. You're saying anything that the pros have will probably make its way down to youth, and that's an investment opportunity if you find the right aggregator.
Exactly.
Yeah, I buy that. I buy that.
Yeah.
Gina wants to know, is there anything you don't want to see any more of? Meaning you've seen too many of them. And I'll answer that for you and give you a second to think. I don't want to see any more apps. If it requires me to download anything, you've lost me. It's certainly not. Certainly not an investment opportunity. There's no way I'm going to download anything else. What do you get pitched a lot that you wish you didn't have to see any more of?
Yeah, so in the sports space, you're seeing just a ton of it's the Instagrams, overlay filter, fan engagement, potentially sports betting. It's when they try to combine 5 or 6 different things
that somebody else owns and try to make something new. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't and you don't necessarily know exactly what they do well. I think those are I've seen so many of those that has been tough, right? Because someone's going to actually win out of that space.
Yeah. And it's going to be the dumbest idea you've ever seen. And you're going to be like, this is the one that wins?
Yeah.
How come I didn't invest in this? Because it was a dumb idea and it just somehow catches fire.
Agreed. Yeah. So that's the one, at least for us, we've seen. And then we've seen a ton of the stay in your seat. So it's an app. So order food from your seat in venue tech.
A lot of in venue tech. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been we stay away from those for the most part, just because there's going to be, if we were only investing in that space and we can invest in 5 or 6 of them and hedge our bets, we're going to take what we feel like is the best, whatever it is, in a space and invest in that and surround those founders with resources.
Do you ever get a phone call or an email from the Packers? Forget where in their industry, where in their organization, where somebody's just like, Cordero, you got to take a look at this thing.
We get emails from a lot of organizations, but the Packers are one of them, where every now and then they'll see something and they just want us to vet it out and look at it, or we'll see something from another org and we'll get it from someone else. They say, can you share this with the Packers, right? And we can work our chains that way to kind of see if it's a real thing or not. But every now and then, they have people emailing them what they think are this is my best, greatest idea, and they go straight to them. Maybe sometimes thinking they're coming to us, right? Can you get this title tech? And so that does happen, and then it's fun.
I love that with Slate you actually partnered with the Vikings.
Yeah, that was teams in the NFC North, we can get along for the right causes.
Yeah, I guess so. It'll be interesting what those board meetings are like when you have to start talking about, follow-on investments and things of that nature. I wanted to touch on basically who you rely on in the network, right? You look at the peers. Again, we know most of theen groups, right? The ownership groups have been doing this stuff. MLSE has been doing this, down with Monumental Sports, they've been doing things. The Sixers have been doing a bunch of this. There's been a lot of work in Middle America, St. Louis. So where do you guys is there like a group of you that get together and say, hey, we're all running sports funds independently, we should share notes? Or is there more of a sense of like, there's not enough deal flow in this space, we should kind of, keep our best ideas to ourselves? Like, I know you're more than sports, but there is a flavor of like, something's going to really take off in sports because the industry is completely changing. There is disruption. There are cracks in the foundation of this industry. Do you feel like you need to partner with those guys to get scale, or do you want to, just keep your money to yourself kind of thing?
No, we definitely think, like I believe personally, and then I know as a fund in the sports space, like the market is fragmented, whether you look at geography or funds or teams, like it's fragmented tech and how it's built. And so for us, we like to collaborate. And
do you officially syndicate with these other funds? Like, are they like potential syndicate partners, or do you guys just refer deals that may not be right for you to somebody else?
We'll pull team. Well, we'll pull other ventures in that fit. If we're leading a deal, we're not afraid to lead. Even with the fund our size, in Wisconsin, that's kind of one of the things that we realized right away, that people weren't willing to lead deals. Right. And so we'll pull venture funds in that fit. What the teams or the founders' needs are, the company's needs are. We partner with Stadia Ventures quite a bit in regards to deal flow. So they we see a lot of their deals. Yeah. Obviously TechSpark, we connect with them. But you look at, like, I know Wayne Kimmel with 76
Sure.
Ventures, they have their niche. We're actually looking at a deal right now with them, and we're very interested in it. So I don't know, we got that Midwest nice, but we're still aggressive. So it's kind of the unassuming Midwest nice, right? We're not afraid to partner, whether it's, again, Wise Ventures. You bought the Minnesota Vikings ownership group together to get slate done. The Packers and the Vikings were both using their dashboard to help with their social media. And it was just like they had a round, like, why wouldn't we both just go in and knock this? We're both using it, right? They're both franchises are using it. Why wouldn't TitletownTech? Why don't we come in and invest with you? So it is. We don't, Great North Labs. So that group that was they're in Minnesota as well. Like we share deal flow quite a bit, and I think we all, at least for us, we have our own unique niche, and with the LPs that we could bring to the table and connectivity we could bring to the table, a lot of people see it as a way for us to kind of add additional value that's intangible outside of just the capital.
So we touched on Microsoft, we touched on your vertical focus, we've touched a little bit on your portfolio. There will be some people that watch this purely because they want to get to know you before they pitch you. So talk a little bit about sort of Fund 1 and your plans for Fund 2, how you guys think about reserves and follow-on investments. And then maybe touch on, it sounds like you're stage agnostic, but that term's thrown around a little too much. Yeah. Tell me about like what stage you really like to get involved with these companies. So now treat me like I'm an entrepreneur coming to you to pitch your idea. Give me that piece of it so I can know whether or not it's the right time for me to be talking to you.
Well, Josh, your app. I just don't know about your app, but I'm just joking.
It's not an app. No, I'm definitely not building an app.
No, we look. So we call it the create stage. So that pre-seed stage where some founder may just
pre-seed.
Yep.
That's so ideal. Okay, pre-seed. Yep.
And then we'll go as late as Series A, depending on what that means, right? So we've seen deals that now would be like they have 2 seed rounds, a series like. So it kind of all this like the math equation of
the names of these things are ridiculous. I've seen seed rounds now, $3 million seed round. That's a Series A in my book. Yeah. So whatever you call it. But so you guys will you do like convertible notes? Will you participate at that stage? Yep. Okay.
Yep. Participate in convertible notes. And it's really just the bumper rails are pre-seed to Series A.
When's it get too big? 5 million? You won't lead things like. Do you have like a threshold where you're like, look, seriously, like it's probably not right for us?
I'm
gonna try to nail you down. I
appreciate that. I appreciate you trying to. So we actually have. So ideally, we don't want to lead rounds where we can't get at least 30% of the round, right? It's just like
30%.
bad business etiquette. But at the same time, we have a number of partners that we'll co-lead deals, and like Bayard Capital is actually a LP. So their venture arm is invested into our fund. So when we have deals that maybe are too big, we'll connect with them and see if they want to get in on the deal, and they'll get the capital to a right number where we can co-lead a deal. And so we've done that. We're actually closing a $10 million round right now. We're working on a $10 million raise. We're a co-lead at $1 million. That's the largest amount we can invest based on our LPA. So I would say, we do like to be like, I think that $3 to $5 million range, not as a lead, but as in like, that's our sweet spot, but we're not afraid to punch above our weight class a little bit. So, but that's.
And then talk to me about reserves. Can I count on you guys for follow on?
Absolutely. Yep. So we definitely have set aside reserve capital from this first fund to follow on those that are showing all of the right signals and are scaling, they're on that hockey stick path. Yep.
So how much is left in fund one in terms of like, should I be talking to you now, or should I be waiting for you to raise your next round? Your next fund?
Yeah, so you got to think we did our first close in September of last year, right? So although we had some warehouse investments that we bought in, we're a relatively young fund at a very early stage in our life cycle. So if there's people that have ventures that they're looking to get investment, you should reach out. Absolutely. It's we haven't reached our halfway point even in regards to investable capital in our first 3 years.
Well, let me talk to you a little bit about two positive trends that we're seeing across all of VC, and Erica and Gina are touching on it, which is that there's a little bit more of an awareness now that they're underrepresented in the entrepreneur and VC-backed community, and entrepreneurs that come from diverse backgrounds, but also entrepreneurs that are female and women-led companies. Do you guys have a special focus on trying to see deal flow in that space? Are you dedicating some of your fund to that, or is that just more opportunistic? As the right deals come in, you guys are trying to apply your funds in that way?
So I think based on the diversity of our team, we have an acute awareness. So our co-manager, Jill Linos, female.
I know Jill well. Yep.
Yep. Spent time in Atlanta, spent time out in DC. Craig Dickman, who's our managing director, has always had young, diverse talent in his organizations. And so, you look at our team, myself as the sports and money guy in the venture capital in this firm, we're very aware of the lack of opportunity, just to call it what it is, for founders of color and women in the space. And so we take a deeper dive probably than most VCs. We definitely are aware of that, and we make sure that we I would say almost go out of our way to make sure we're looking at those deals with the proper eye and hold them to the standard we would hold any other deal to, without dismissing anyone. So I know we haven't allocated specifically a set amount of funds, but our first 3 investments, Vernacular, which is a language-based learning VR, gaming tool, almost like it's gamified learning, female founder. Archaeologica, eye tracking, concussion, first FDA concussion diagnostic, non-invasive concussion diagnostic. Rosina, she's from Wisconsin, but is a female founder of color. Mustafa Abdul Hamid was our third investment, Boost, so a founder of color. And so it did just work out. Like I say, it worked out that way, but we are also very aware that there's opportunities because those founders are being underserved, and you're seeing where some of the funds that focus on them are outperforming some of the regular firms.
Oh yeah, the data speaks for itself. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those situations where you have such an interesting opportunity based on not only where you are geographically, how you've partnered with Microsoft to do this, but again, in your next fund, to expressly show that you've made those strides. I think, again, it's just one of those things where this industry is starting to get smarter about how those opportunities need to be sought after, because they just often don't present themselves in the way that naturally the venture capital world works, where there's a lot of old boys club passing on references to each other and things of that nature. So kudos to you guys for doing that. And again, I think just being able to reference those portfolio companies and those founders is fantastic start. And hopefully we can see more of that in fund too. So tell me a little bit about this. We're wrapping up, coming toward the end of the hour. I saw Trevor Noah's bit, with the Microsoft guys. You guys are getting tremendous exposure for this thing. So what's success look like? I mean, what do you really want to get out of this? And, obviously the IRR and the investment, from the banking side of things, but, what metrics do you look at from a success standpoint when you think about what you've invested into the community? How do you measure that? How do you measure the soft success of doing something like this in an area that gets overlooked for sort of this type of innovation?
Yeah. So I do think, you have your metrics that every fund is going to track, but I do think seats in Green Bay. So how much talent can we bring, and how much talent can we say? We've actually, as much as we have brought talent here, we had a few founders that were leaving, that were going to take their business and grow it elsewhere, that have decided to stay in Green Bay or in Wisconsin.
So retention, don't have the brain drain. So there's some metric around like, hey, we're keeping smart people here and they're starting businesses here and we're supporting them. So brain drain is one of them. Yep. What else?
And so then you look at, once they've gotten through the stage where they're inside of TitletownTech, does that business stay here, right? So it's not only one thing to build it here, but when they leave the four walls of TitletownTech, are they finding office space in Wisconsin? And then also the connectivity. So are we helping the economy? Are we creating jobs not only within the companies that we invest in, but now because some of these companies are growing and maybe have manufacturing needs, are we able to spin that into one of our LPs or one of our contacts that all of a sudden maybe need to hire more people in order to handle this business line that they now have because of TitletownTech. And I also think you look at, is this something that can be replicated in other areas, right? So I think from a Microsoft standpoint, they're trying to figure out, this is just a unique thing to our team, or is this something that can be done in some of the other areas, pockets of the country that have similar demographics that we have in Green Bay, right? And so I think there's a combination of all of that. And I think personally for me, especially prior to everything that's happened since COVID has started, but I'm big on, access. So I think middle class America here is, can we have the next group of venture leads, stem from this region? Like, when I'm old and I'm in my 70s and I'm looking back, did we create systemic change? Whether it's our partnership with the UW system, where students that were leaving the coast now all of a sudden think of staying here to do venture capital. I think that's another metric that I know it's another metric that we are tracking and looking at in regards to impact. So,
well, I can just tell you personally, the fact that I've been working out of Vermont for the last few months, that if you asked me a year ago where I thought the larger demographic trend and shift was headed, it was all back into the city. It just felt that way. It was like everybody wanted to be near the coffee shop. Everybody wanted to have a small dog. People weren't having as many kids. Like the macro trends were visible from those metrics. But now I think with this situation, if there's a silver lining, there's the complete appreciation that you can grow a business remotely. You can lead a business in a diverse way anywhere in the world, and recruit talent from anywhere.
Absolutely.
And so the tailwinds are behind you now, man. I think like you guys are really, really well positioned to take advantage of something that you've started without this obviously in mind. Nobody could have seen this coming, but like, I love where you're at.
Yeah, appreciate it, Josh. No, it's definitely exciting. I'm fortunate to be a part of a very, very intelligent, honest, brutally honest team. But at the same time, we all come in every day, with our hard hat, humble, just know that we have to, we have a bigger mission at play. And we come to work every day and we try to just make it a great experience for our founders. And to be honest with you, the rest of it kind of takes care of itself, when done with intentionality. So great partners, obviously, but I think that the day-to-day, the discipline, the effort, the energy, and we get opportunities to kind of clarify some of the details of it, when opportunities to partner with, the Sports Innovation Lab and yourself is huge. So we appreciate that as well.
Well, look, I usually say to my guests, I want you to have the last word. So is there anything left you want to say? But that was just so well said. I think you've already dropped the mic. But I do want to offer the last few minutes here. Is there anything that I didn't touch on that you want to make sure you mention? Any other portfolio companies you want to give a shout out to? Please take the last minute or two here to do what you need to do.
Well, yeah, no, I definitely, again, just thank you. I know Angela is actually on our board of advisors, so it's great to just be connected to you guys and all of your insights.
Which means you better get more women founders, or you're in trouble.
Yes, I'm already.
Because if she's sitting next to you or that close, you better be mindful of her mission-driven vision on this stuff. Yeah.
No, I think to be honest with you, Josh, we kind of nailed everything, that I felt like that we could hit on. I think if you have any organizations that do end up watching this, they should go to Kim Direct's site if they need any type of PPE equipment. They're doing a great job really flattening out the distribution cycle on that. So they've been able to help a lot of some professional organizations as well as some universities get faster lead times on their equipment, as well as reduce the expense. But outside of that, and I just appreciate the platform and the opportunity. And if we can help anybody with anything, feel free to reach out.
And how do they reach you? What's the best way?
I'd say they email, or they can call me. But email is probably the best way. On our website as well. Our website, we can go
what is the website for Titletown?
Yeah, TitletownTech.com. So we try to keep it simple. Yep. So,
perfect. So yeah, there's the plug. There's the email address. They can find you there. But Cordero, it was a pleasure, man. I'm really glad we got a chance to do this. Stay strong, stay safe, take care of your dog. Didn't bark once. And we'll catch up again soon, buddy.
Appreciate it, Josh.
All right, be well.
You too.